Okay. Well, thank you for that. Okay. Thank you for that, Jim, for that wonderful introduction. So I'm going to start off with reading a prayer to you guys that I'm sure once you hear it's very familiar. One night, I had a dream. I dreamed I was walking along the beach with the Lord, and across the sky flashed scenes from my life. For each scene, I noticed 2 sets of footprints in the sand. One belonged to me, and the other to the Lord. When the last scene of my life flashed before us, I looked back at the footprints in the sand and noticed that many times along the path of my life, there was only 1 set of footprints. I also noticed that it happened at the very lowest and saddest times in my life. They really bothered me, and I questioned the Lord about it. Lord, you said that once I decided to follow you, you would walk with me all the way. But I have noticed that during the most troublesome times in my life, there was only 1 set of footprints. I don't understand that why in times when I needed you the most, you should leave me. The Lord replied, my precious, precious child, I love you and would never, never leave you during your times of trial and suffering. When you saw only 1 set of footprints, it was then that I carried you. It's all the footprints prayer, so I'm sure you guys have heard that one before. Well, this prayer has been important to me since a very young age. When I was 7, my grandfather passed away, my mother's father, and this prayer was on the memorial cards for his funeral. It's a card that I've actually kept through all these years, and it's right here with my Bible. At that age, I didn't realize just how important those words were to me, but I knew I wanted to keep this piece of my grandfather, and I have. It's been a while since I had looked upon that prayer. Then it reappeared to me one Christmas at Reverend Moore's house, actually. It was my junior year's chapel staff, and we were having our annual Christmas party. As a gift to the staff members, we were all given these little crosses with different scriptures and prayers on them. When I opened mine, it just happened to be the footprints prayer. And seeing it brought me back all those years and made me instantly think of my grandfather. Receiving that cross has actually been one of the greatest gifts, and it's a gift that travels everywhere with me. I brought it here today with me. So I thank Jim, Diane, and Carrie Ann for that. Those words have given me strength to carry on when I don't know what to do with life. And this cross actually hangs above my bed, wherever that happens to be, and went with me while I lived out west recently. Now, I have a question for you guys. Have you guys ever visited a national park in America? I'm guessing so, yes. But how many times did you go during the summertime? Because that's when a Christian ministry is there. And since I know you guys had children who went there, those of you who haven't heard of Christian ministry, did you hear about it when you were at the park though? Because we have our services there. Anyone not know them? You don't know them? Okay. Well, I had been going to national parks since I was a kid, and I had never heard about a Christian ministry either until college. And now I'm here to tell you about my experience and how it meant so much to me. So last spring, I was in the position that maybe some of you guys are, or will be next year, graduating college and leaving the Westminster community. And while there are people who have their futures planned out and know exactly where they're going after undergrad, I had no idea, because all the internships and jobs I had applied for had rejected me, and I wasn't ready to continue for my master's yet. But you know what? You don't always have to know where you're going. Sometimes God will just lead you there. But all throughout my undergrad, I would see these representatives sitting in the tub for an organization called a Christian ministry. It always interested me, and I would talk to them, saying, oh, maybe next year I'll do it. Well, here I was, the spring of 2012, facing leaving Westminster and not sure where to go, until I saw a flyer for a Christian ministry again. That's when it clicked. Now is my chance to finally see what it was all about. So that night, I went to their website, and I applied. And a few weeks later, I received what was a call to serve email. But I'm getting a little ahead, so let me tell you what a Christian ministry really is. While the title is self-explanatory, I'll give you some background. Back in 1951, a young seminary student from Princeton by the name of Warren Oast was working in Yellowstone National Park for the summer. And he realized that the religious needs of the park visitors, employees, and permanent residents, and decided to remedy their situation. So one Sunday, he led an interdenominational worship service right there at the bar area of the Old Faithful Inn. And that is where a Christian ministry was born. After that, the ministry just kind of grew, and the demand was there for it. And Dr. Reverend Oast went on to lead a Christian ministry and expand it until his retirement in 1996. Before he passed in 1997, though, he had gotten a Christian ministry into 25 national parks, national monuments, recreation areas, and national forests. And originally, a Christian ministry was guided and supported by the National Council of Churches, or NCC, until in 1971, the NCC formally recognized a Christian ministry as a valid, independent, interdenominational movement, and it's recognized now by over 40 different denominations. Today, Christian ministry sends about 200 volunteer ministry team members into 75 locations in 25 national parks across America, ranging from Alaska all the way down to the Virgin Islands. And these volunteers are college students, just like some of you, or they're from seminary, because you can get seminary credit for doing this. For over 60 years, Christian ministry has been a student-led ministry, providing interdenominational services of worship and Christian fellowship to people who live in, work in, and visit the national parks. Over 30,000 people worship together every year because of a Christian ministry. And where better to worship than firsthand in God's beautiful natural treasures. So now that you know a little bit more about them, I'll get back to my story. So I received my call to serve email, and this is when I had to decide if this was really for me or not. They tell you what park you've been placed in, and they ask you to pray on whether or not this is the path for you. So I prayed, and every time I felt that this is what I needed to do, and it could only strengthen my faith. So I accepted the call, and the day after commencement, I was driving my car 2,000 miles to the middle of nowhere, Utah. I had no idea what to expect, but I had that cross with footprints on it, and I knew it would be okay, and that God would carry me through whatever happened. I don't know if anyone else here has ever been to Utah. Have you? Okay, well, for those of you who haven't, I thought it was just a desert, and that's all I knew, and I was like, I don't really like deserts. Well, it's absolutely beautiful landscape. It really is not anything that I would have expected. And if you don't like what you see, you drive an hour and the landscape has completely changed. I mean, you go from the reds and oranges of Bryce Canyon right behind me to a beautiful fertile fruit valley, which would be Zion National Park because it has this river that runs through and there's orchards, or even to a quaking aspen forest. It's also considered America's national park capital. I mean, it has 5 great national parks in it and many other national monuments. It's a state that now, after living in and traveling all over, I highly recommend you to see. Anyways, here I was in Bryce Canyon National Park and working with 2 other women to organize and deliver 2 worship services every Sunday for the park for the duration of the summer. And the interesting thing was that we all came from different religious backgrounds. I was born and raised Catholic, my roommate was an Episcopalian, and our other teammate was a Seventh-day Adventist, which I had never heard of. Despite our differences, though, we all had a common tie, and that was our belief in God and our mission with the Christian ministry, to provide Christian community to the people who came in contact with us at the park. We started off as strangers in the beginning, but throughout our time together, we became great friends, stronger in our faith and ourselves through our experiences that summer. And even the other people that I worked with in the park were great. We were all kind of like a family, and I keep in touch with a lot of them. Some of our employees were regulars at our services, which was nice to have the support from them weekly and to hear them through the week be asking us about worship for that coming Sunday. With a Christian ministry, though, you have to go to a training conference in the spring, and they warn you that sometimes you may have no one show up to your services. Not to worry about it. We had gotten in contact with the ministry in Zion, and they had said they had a couple weeks where they had no one. But thankfully, we were blessed, and we had attendance to all of our services throughout the summer, and that was mostly to the support of our fellow employees, who are our regulars. My summer with the Christian ministry has brought me closer to God. It renewed me in my faith, and it made me excited to be a Christian again. Because here I was, having to work with my team and organize worship for other people. I had never done this before, really, and it's a different feeling being the one in front of the congregation and having them look to you for spiritual pick-me-up for the week. But it's a good feeling, and I think others should have a chance to feel that way too, especially if you're ever doubting yourself or your faith, because I definitely got a lot closer to God through this experience. It wasn't easy all the time. While I enjoyed myself, it could be trying at times, because on top of running worship, we also had full-time jobs working in the park. I sometimes worked 60-hour-plus weeks. But I do remember one service that was pretty amazing, but a little trying. It was during the monsoon season out there, because yes, it really does happen in America. It rained nonstop from the end of July to August in Bryce Canyon. So it was the morning after a big rain, and we had headed out to the rim of the canyon to give our first service for the day. It was about 8 in the morning, so it was pretty cold. It was still in the 30s, and it was wet everywhere. We didn't really think anyone was going to come because it was freezing, but then 2 of our regulars came up, and then 2 passerby campers came. Everyone was freezing, and no one wanted to sit on the wet benches, but there happened to be these areas of little sunlight off to the side from where we were, and everyone looked at them and looked at each other, and that's when we decided we're going to go stand in the sun. So we all shifted and huddled in a circle in this little spot of sunshine, and that was how we worshiped that morning, talking in the sun, taking in the sun and each other's warmth. It was ridiculous, but we all thoroughly enjoyed the service and actually stood talking around longer after the service had ended. The cold was forgotten. One of the most challenging things, though, for me to do during that summer was writing a sermon. It's always been kind of hard for me to express in words to others my faith. And every time I delivered a sermon, I was so afraid that the crowd wouldn't be receptive to it, or they just wouldn't be good. And every time I was wrong. People would always come up to me after the service to thank me for the message and how much it meant to them. And the feeling you get from that really is indescribable. This made giving and writing my sermons a little easier by the end of the summer, and I thank God for his faith and strength in me, and for the beautiful creations he gave, which were inspiration and kept me going each day. And that is one of the great perks of doing ministry like you do with a Christian ministry, is that you are living and worshiping in God's beautiful creations, and how can you not but feel him everywhere and believe? So, for those of you who are unsure of what to do next summer, or even this summer, because they are still doing a little bit last-minute placing, I highly recommend volunteering with a Christian ministry and working in a national park for the summer. For all you know, the footprints in the sand could be carrying you there. They did with me, and they are again. As Jim said, I am going to be going to the Tetons this summer. It is an experience, I tell you, you will